3, 2, 1.
Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Happy Hour podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, we are going to break down week 18 of the NFL season. Obviously, typically you hear a lot of fantasy football stuff from us as well, but that'll alter a little bit as fantasy football season is over. We're going to talk playoffs, Matthew Fox's game of the week, some best bets, some coaches on the hot seat, and we'll end the show with the movie corner like we do each and every week. As always, I'm joined by my partner, Mr. Matthew Fox. How are you today, sir?
Doing pretty good. You know, it's snowy this week, but hanging in there.
Yeah, we got the snow last week. We are diving into 60-degree weather / tornadoes / really, heavy rainstorms and stuff, thunderstorms right now. So it's pretty cool how we've touched every season in the last, week. So it's pretty
almost
cool.
Like you're in Colorado.
It's the Tennessee weather is actually it's crazy because it used to be like I used to joke it's like this is Tennessee weather. It's like weather across the United States now is like this. I mean, for most places, you know what I mean? Some places don't get all of this, but it's been crazy. But obviously we're not here to talk about the weather. We'll go ahead and dive right into news and notes. Obviously, we're going to kick off the show talking about Damar Hamlin. Great news from there. Things look like they're going in the up and up regarding his health status. Obviously, he's got a long way to go, but the plus side is understanding that he's improving since Monday night. It's one of the scariest, most. I don't even know how to convey how I felt watching. It was really traumatic. I still think that the black eye on the NFL needs to be painted because of their attempt to try to restart that game. And then, of course, with the likelihood of McDermott and Zach Taylor really coming in and kind of saving – I think they saved the NFL's face there by kind of cutting the quits there. But one of the things I do want to talk about is – what we do each and every week on this show is we talk about fantasy football. We talk about mass games of the week. We talk about players starting and sitting. But I think that all of this has dehumanized the players on the football field. And it's really kind of made this, I don't know, it's kind of made this space sometimes kind of, just like any space, kind of toxic, grotesque, and forget that these athletes are humans. Yes, they are paid a lot of money to go on in that football field. But you know what? They've earned that paycheck to come out in that football field. And I think that it has been a little bit clouded for quite some time about, how people tweet at athletes because they didn't perform well enough for them to win their fantasy football matchups. But I think this injury kind of put a lot of things in perspective and how we've not all of us, but we have as a collective whole have lost sight of these athletes being human. And Fox, any thoughts on kind of what transpired?
Yeah, it was, unlike anything I've ever seen before. I thought it was good that they ended up not playing the game. It is a fascinating process to get there, which you kind of alluded to. Originally, if you were watching the broadcast, they said now these teams are being given 5 minutes and we're going to resume play. And I thought, well, that seems a little bit weird. And you saw the coaches talking, and then all of a sudden they went to the locker room, and you thought, oh, well, the NFL decided not to do that. No, Zach Taylor and Sean McDermott went over there and had a discussion, decided to tell the NFL to take a long walk off a short pier and put their teams back in the locker room, kind of forcing the hand. And that makes you think about the situation a little bit differently. Football is secondary concern. I don't know about you, but it's been tough this week, even thinking about seeing games, or for us writing and covering. I've done some pieces, and it seems weird. Games of the week, you would be really tempted, and I do have Cincinnati in my, not to jump too far ahead, but the Cincinnati Buffalo games are crucial. But it's also, as someone who's just a fan of the league, the fantasy question has been, the night of, all the people that were bemoaning their fate was annoying. But now that we're into Thursday, I understand not really having a resolution. It's been interesting to see Sleeper decide, well, that's it. They closed not only week 17, but they capped the entire season. They're like, we're done. There's no, everything. I don't know if you were on there. All the leagues rebooted. And you're like, okay, well, that was intriguing. ESPN went the other way and said they will never close week 17 until the NFL decides what they're going to do about this game. They won't even give you firm week 18 results if you were advancing to week 18. So it's been a weird limbo. It's a weird way to end both the season and the fantasy season. And the more I've reflected on it, there just is no scenario where that game doesn't have a massive impact on the playoffs. Even Buffalo, for as little as they probably want to play football, want to play that game because they want to be the number one seed.
Yeah, it's crazy because even sportsbooks basically just refunded all your bets on the game. That's basically what they did is they voided out all the transactions on the bets. Daily Fantasy, DFS, they did the same thing. They just wound out all the accounts back into there, which also can be very frustrating, especially after the first half of the quarter. Maybe you're sitting at first place winning $10,000, and at the end of the day, you only win $3 back. But the thing about it is that party right there is very scary when you look at it, because you're taking out the human aspect of this football game. And you're right. It was like, I was like, man, we're going to podcast on Thursday, Tuesday. I just didn't feel like looking at the slate and finding bets. Wednesday, I woke up this morning. I found a couple bets to talk about. Obviously, we're going to talk about some games and stuff like right now, but it's hard to envision. But on top of that, this game was so massive on the playoff scale. So like, even if it ends up as a tie, that still shakes the entire atmosphere, especially on the side of Cincinnati, who looked like they had control early on in that football game. And I think they were on their way to score again, whether that's a field goal or touchdown. Nobody knows how things would have played out. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, because I think the best case scenario is a tie, I think, or they just render the game useless. I've saw that where they're talking about just making the game a no contest and then just letting week 18 kind of render how it's going to. It's going to be interesting, because then what does that stand for, like fantasy football? I know people that, what if you were only down 10 points going into it's very like, you can't really do a rematch in week 18. Starters aren't playing, new guys. It's just crazy how it's something that we've never seen before, especially in the economy, which is very driven by, and the NFL is very driven by fantasy football and sports betting.
Well, and so it's not out of the realm of possibility that Kansas City loses to Las Vegas on Saturday.
No, especially the way they've been playing.
And that opens the door to a whole bunch of things. Cincinnati had a path to the 1 seed.
Yep.
That if you void out that game, you're asking them to give up. Buffalo would essentially almost certainly be sacrificing the 1 seed, because if Kansas City wins, Kansas City has played one more game and has one more win and would be a half game up like they are right now. If you're the Baltimore Ravens too, if you beat Cincinnati this week, you need them to play that game, because if Cincinnati would have lost on Monday night, which I was picking Buffalo, and Cincinnati loses this week, Baltimore's the winner of the AFC North. There is no scenario, I've tried to think about this, about where it doesn't impact seeding in some way for the top of the AFC. But going on the flip side, they've talked about, will that game get replayed on Wednesday or Thursday of the week in between? And you're basically condemning one, possibly both of those teams who are strong AFC contenders to play three high-pressure, meaningful games in 8 days. At most 8 days, could be few as 7, or at most 9 days if one of them gets the Monday night slot in the week. But it's most likely 7 or 8 days. That's also pretty brutal. And they've talked about, can we collapse that week between the championship games and the Super Bowl? That week doesn't have a competitive game, but it has the Pro Bowl, which they're still going forward announcing they're selling tickets to. They have the Mannings, Ray Lewis, and I can't remember and DeMarcus Ware are all coaching those teams. They've really invested in making that more of a fan experience. Where are you putting that? You're definitely not playing that on a week where you still have active playoff games going. Are you punting that then to the week after the Super Bowl, meaning that now you're trying to boot everything to President's Day weekend, which, that impacts people's travel plans and things. Sliding the Super Bowl, people buy tickets to the Super Bowl in advance. There are a lot of questions. There is no scenario now where everyone's going to be happy.
Yeah, at the end of the day, everybody, because at the end of the day, look, I would think that percentage-wise, if Kansas City loses this week, Buffalo ends up 13-3, they would be ahead of Kansas City, correct? Because of the one extra loss, right? But then if
yes,
Cincinnati were to win this week, Buffalo wins this week, then Buffalo would be 13-3, Kansas City's 12-4, or Cincinnati's 12-4, and who knows if they would have beat. It's just if they
so that's the thing. Yeah, if Cincinnati would have won on Monday and then wins this week, and Kansas City loses, they own the tiebreaker over all of them. Yeah. And actually, if you're Cincinnati, you need to have a game either way, because they'd be sitting at 12-4. Kansas City's 13-4. They own the tiebreaker. Even if those two teams ended up with the exact same record, that's what I'm saying. There's no real,
it's a disaster
scenario where the one seed isn't affected. And with how much that means, and that's the tough part, because nobody really is. Personally, if we took a week off football, I'd be fine, and I think players would be fine. It's hard to get super psyched about it right now, although I'm grateful that all the news surrounding him seems to be positive. It's a very weird scenario. It's unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that's really kind of saving the NFL, I guess you could say the word is the fact that it's looking good for him, because otherwise I'm not sure how anybody plays football this week. You know what I mean? I don't. Like, that's, I don't want to talk that morbid, but it's just a fact that if it was going the other way, I don't think you could play NFL this week. Like, I just don't think you could. Like, I mean, you have to figure out a way around it. But that said, we're going to do our best here to talk about what's ahead in the Week 18 slate for you guys. We'll kick it off. There's no Thursday night game, obviously. A couple Saturday night games, a couple Sunday games, but we're going to jump right into Matt's game of the week.
So we have two games that are going on Saturday. I referenced the first one is Kansas City, Las Vegas, but my game of the week for Saturday is the nightcap, which is the Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've been teed up for this one. Josh Dobbs starting for Tennessee. Could it be Mike Vrabel's last game? We'll be. I'm looking ahead a little bit to when we talk about coaches on the hot seat. I think the Jaguars win this game. I was kind of surprised this didn't end up with a more prime slot on Sunday, but in some ways, hey, good for them. They have the national stage. The Jaguars, with what they've done, deserve that. Sunday early game, Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know how Cincinnati plays. I think they've gotten lost a little bit in this. All the talk's been the Buffalo players. I'm sure they lost a teammate. Couldn't have been great for those Cincinnati players who were on the field seeing the exact same thing. That's got to be a big mental toll for them. And they have to get up for this one with Baltimore. If they win this game, that cuts out one of the questions that's hanging over them. But if Baltimore wins that game, it puts even more pressure on the game that did not take place, because Baltimore then has a path to the AFC North, having swept the Cincinnati Bengals. The Sunday late game, New York Giants, they're already in the playoffs. They can't change their seed, but I still think they want to play hard and that they want to get Philadelphia, and there is a lot on the line for the Eagles now. Will we see Jalen Hurts? It feels more likely than it did last week, but I wouldn't say it's a lead pipe lock. Will Hurts be rusty? Will Hurts be worried about re-injury? If the Eagles lose this game, there could be ultimate chaos because if the Eagles lose, the 49ers and the Cowboys win, the Eagles are now the 5th seed at Tampa Bay to open the playoffs, which is a huge swing. And the 49ers with Brock Purdy are the ones that get a bye week while Dallas is at home against whoever ends up being the 7th seed, which ironically could end up being Green Bay. And I don't know how I would feel about that. As a Dallas homer, I think I'd rather play Tampa Bay right now. So that one has some massive implications. The Giants have been playing well, and I think for pride's sake, they can't move their seed, but they certainly would like to go into the playoffs knowing that they could beat and stay on the same field of the Eagles because they weren't on the same field with them the first time they played. The Sunday Night Football, it's an easy call. Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, both 8-8, has huge playoff implications. If the Seahawks win during the afternoon, then the Lions can't get in no matter what they do. If the Seahawks lose, the winner of that game is literally your 7th seed. The Green Bay Packers are the 7th seed no matter what, as long as they win. It's going to be a fun game. Two teams that have been really hot to end the season. My upset special, Tua Tagovailoa is not part of the equation for the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins have one of the better win-and-you're-in scenarios because they're playing a reeling Jets team, while the Patriots get the Bills. That is a tough, that's a tough game to factor. I would have, at this time last week, I would have told you I'm taking the Bills. I'm not thinking twice about it. But right now, we don't know what the state of Buffalo is, and it's a real question to me. However, I think the Jets go and get this win. If for no other reason than preseason, I thought Miami and New England were going to end up 8-9 just out of the playoffs. And in the middle of the season, that looked like the dumbest statement I'd ever made. And now I'm so close to it coming true. I am taking my upset special. I'm taking my white. I'm taking the Jets to win a game likely over Skylar Thompson. Because don't forget, Teddy Bridgewater dislocated a finger on his throwing hand. And Tua is not going to play. So that is my games of the week.
I'll tell you what, I still have my fun scenario where even if Jacksonville loses on Saturday, they can make the playoffs because literally everything they needed to happen happened that last week in the NFL. So basically, New England loses to Buffalo. The Jets beat Miami, like you say, and the Browns beat Pittsburgh.
That's the one you're not going to get.
Huh?
That's the one you're not going to get.
Oh, the Browns are beating Pittsburgh this week. I guarantee it. It's going to happen.
The Steelers end up in the playoffs.
No, I genuinely believe the Jaguars will be in regardless this weekend. I just don't believe in. I don't believe in the. I think the other way around for the Bills. I think mentally it's going to be a hard game, but I think they're going to want to kind of win a football game type of scenario.
That's my hope, but. No team has experienced the kind of devastation.
No, absolutely not. No. So it's hard, but I think Cleveland does beat Pittsburgh this week. I really do. I think Cleveland's played a little bit better ball recently than they have all season, and I think they have Pittsburgh hasn't beat anybody to impress me. So I don't believe in, and neither really has Cleveland. But Pittsburgh's not a good football team. They're skating by. They're playing good defense. I will say that they're playing very, very good defense. But I don't believe
Pittsburgh beat the same Baltimore team that managed to truck the Browns.
I'm not disagreeing that it's not possible. But Baltimore beat the Browns 3 weeks ago, 13-3.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So it's like they both.
That's what I'm saying. Pittsburgh beat Baltimore. Baltimore beat Cleveland.
No, but hang on. Yeah. You're right. It doesn't matter. I still think Cleveland wins this football game. I think they're playing better football as of late. And as of late, just leave me alone. All right, whatever. We're just moving on to something else. I still think, like I said,
they got trucked by the Saints at home.
The Saints are actually a good team, though. They were a decent team.
The Saints had no receivers. They still beat the crowd.
I still think the Saints played decent football this year. With that said, we are. What is this?
You're just all pumped up because you get to see Sam Howell this week.
I am not. I do not want to watch that midget play football. We saw what a real quarterback looks like in North Carolina this year. That's Drake May. Before we jump into the next segment of our show, I want to talk about Magic Mind. It's the second of the last 2 times you hear me talk about it because this week is the last time I'm going to talk about using the product. Next week, you're going to hear my thoughts on what it's like waning off of the product. You know what I mean? It's something that I've really utilized over these last couple of weeks. I loved using it. It's something that I highly, it's not easy for me to get a gimmick and just like recommend it. It's not like I'm the type of person, if you follow my movie takes, you know that I'm going to be 100% serious. If I get something and it tastes nasty, I'm going to tell you it tastes nasty. There's nothing holding me back from saying, Magic Mind is not good. But I will not say that, because Magic Mind is actually good. It's helped my focus. It's helped me get my writing accomplished. Even as we shift into the new year, I had a whole week off where I didn't do a whole lot. And it's really helped me find my groove this beginning of this year as we jumpstart into the new year and start into new writing. I'm probably going to need to place another order with the Sundance Film Festival right around the corner. And I got about 32 films booked to watch. But like I said, guys, Magic Mind, it works. I promise you, once you try this product, it'll work. It'll keep you focused. It gets you done. It keeps you seated. You know what I mean? It keeps you calm, the anxiety out of your head. Instead of picking up your phone 50 times, you're on your computer focused on what's ahead. Reminder that if you want to join this journey or hear everything I've talked about over the last couple of weeks, head on over to magicmind.co/ranch. Put in our code RANCH20, get 40% off your subscription or 20% off your one-time purchase. Again, magicmind.co, enter our code RANCH20 at checkout in order to get 40% off your subscription or 20% off your one-time purchase. That said, we are going to transition over to a segment that I do not have a cool little fancy thing for, but I'm going to drop our fantasy start and sit one because you got to dance. You know what I mean? I have to drop that just for the little dance segment. You know what I mean? Fox didn't dance with me this week. Apparently, he didn't want to dance. But I guess it's kind of rude to dance into the idea of us talking about the coaches getting fired. Maybe I feel bad now, but no, I don't, because I'm going to bring up the one guy first. The first guy. I'm not even going to. Not the first guy on his list, but the one guy that I believe that if they lose this week should without a doubt be fired, and that's Mike Vrabel. Okay, I understand what he's done over the course of the last couple of years, but if you're going to fire the GM who had a winning record, who turned this franchise around from the dumpster fire that it was, and I mean, it still really is because you pay Tannehill, but turned the franchise around, brought these players in. I understand Mike Vrabel talks them up and gets them on the football field, but I think that if they lose this weekend, it's a monumental meltdown that you just have to clean house. You're bringing a guy in off the street. I still don't believe Josh. I can't believe what they're doing to Malik Willis. I understand that he, quote unquote, Josh Dobbs gives them the best chance to win a football game is what they're saying. But tell me what you did to this kid's like whole entire being. You know what I mean? You just said, hey, you're not good enough. And I don't blame him for how he played on the football field either, because you're not setting him up for success at all, I don't believe. But I believe Mike Vrabel should be out the door if they lose on Saturday.
I think firing John Robinson was probably an indication that they haven't given him a good roster to work with. I think Malik Willis is terrible. I thought he was a terrible prospect coming into the draft. So
I'm not disagreeing with that.
You what?
I'm not disagreeing with that statement.
I mean, there is really no path forward. But at the same time, Mike Vrabel was probably looking at, if I have a chance to get into the playoffs, I'm going to play with a player that gives me a chance and not a player. We saw what he did in 2 games against the Texans, which are the worst in the league, and he couldn't get anything done. He started 3 games. He threw for 276 yards,
I don't think
3 interceptions.
Success, though. I feel like that was my biggest problem with what they did.
They have roster issues, which is why they got rid of John Robinson. There's 2 schools of thought. You could clear him out and just do a total start over. I actually think the firing of John Robinson, where they fired him, was an acknowledgement that there are structural problems and that they like with what he's done as a coach. And I think Vrabel ends up being back.
I agree. I don't think he's going to get fired. I think there is a 0% chance Mike Vrabel gets fired, even if they lose Saturday, because of how well he's spoken about in the circle. But I feel like their Super Bowl window ended this year. Like, it ended last year, really, if we're going to be honest, 100% honest. But with what transpired, I mean, that team won the 1 seed last year and then went out, sacked a quarterback 9 times, and laid a complete egg. I mean, and with that said, Vrabel was just as much behind the contract signing of Tannehill as John Robinson was. I think I don't disagree with you. Vrabel's not going anywhere. I feel like they should fire him and just completely start over. Though.
I don't know if Tannehill was their biggest problem, though. They
I don't
let
think
a lot of talent walk out of the door in a receiving core and in the offensive line, and all the moves Robinson made to try to patch that over have flamed out.
Yeah, but they made
hard.
it to the Super or they made it the 1 seed last year with Tannehill, and he just couldn't get the job done in the playoffs. Is all my point was. Is he's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback? You know what I mean? I feel like there's plenty of other quarterbacks that I think fit what they're trying to do that could have done a better job. But I don't disagree. But moving on along, I know you have Josh McDaniels' name on here. I don't think he's going anywhere.
I don't think he'll end up getting fired either. In the middle of the season, it seemed like he was a lead pipe lock to get fired. There's rumors they don't have the money, which could be real. He made a huge gamble on benching Carr, and that actually paid off last week as Jared Stidham looked pretty incredible. And now Devontae Adams seems a little happier. He still wants to have some kind of a say. I still think McDaniels ends up probably getting moved in the middle of next year. I think it's going to be very much like his first Broncos tenure where he made it through 1 year and then he'll have done enough stuff and they'll have started to lose the team because the disassembling of the Raiders offense has been more subtle than what he did in Denver, but starting out with not renewing or not picking up Josh Jacobs' option, he looks like the best running back in football, and now they can't keep him. And if you looked at if they franchise tagged him, I don't think he would sign the franchise tag. He's pretty anti-Raiders in his comments. I think that's going to come back to bite him. I think Devontae Adams is upset. They're going to end up having to move on from Carr. I think he'll survive this season, but not next.
Yeah, they've played good football in certain increments. I'll be interested to see what they try to do this offseason with Carr. I think there's several places where Carr could go where he could, especially somewhere like New York, the Jets. I feel like he could really thrive for the Jets and play good football there. Obviously, he has a no-trade clause, so he can dictate where he goes this offseason as well. So that's something that's interesting as well.
Or they can release him. It's a $5.6 million cap hit.
I didn't know it was that cheap. Okay. Oh, well, shit. I mean, he's good as gone. Well, I mean, I think he was anyway. But a couple other names on here. Ron Rivera, I feel like he should have been fired after his dumb comment about not knowing that he was eliminated from the playoffs last week. And then, of course, switching back to Carson Wentz, I think was a big I think that was trying to be a flashy move in order to try to get in that playoff hunt, but it didn't work out in his favor. I think he's good as gone.
This one's tough. We think of Ron Rivera as a winner, because he went to the Super Bowl with Carolina and he took Washington to the playoffs. But the Washington football team has never won more than 7 games with him as head coach, including their playoff year where they lucked into a 7-9. Does he take all the blame for a really bad front office situation? No, they've never figured out the quarterback situation. I don't know how much he'll take blame for that. With the NFL trying to get the Commanders sold, do they want to have that much upheaval? Those are all questions I have.
Yeah, who's going to take who's going to take that job? You know,
I literally think that those things all portend toward Rivera being back for one more, win or you're done kind of scenario season.
I can agree with that. I didn't think about the whole off the field stuff. That really
it's the tumult.
You have to find
tumult in the organization.
Yeah. Look at the tumble in the organization. Cliff Kingsbury. I think he survives, but I think like McDaniels probably gets fired mid-year next year.
I think Cliff Kingsbury's gone. I think that Arizona is looking at a season where they'd be lucky if Kyler Murray is ready by Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
To be Kyler Murray. I think you're going to see
them
move.
Honestly, in my opinion.
I think they're going to move DeAndre Hopkins. I think they try to build draft capital, move Zach Ertz, rebuild around a younger core. I mean, try to get some kind of quarterback prospect you're looking at. Kyler Murray, I think the final nail for Cliff Kingsbury is that he lost key players. If Kyler Murray is telling him to basically F himself on the sideline. It's over. Kingsbury has never been successful. The wheels really fell off the bus. I think it's their time to move on. I think they're going to move on from Steve Keim too. I think that there's a sense when Steve Keim went on that indefinite suspension, I think Arizona, big changes are coming to Arizona.
I don't disagree. I feel like they could be safe in just letting, but it's just like, I don't know, man. This team is weird. I don't
drop Kingsbury now before that giant contract extension kicks in, because it doesn't kick in until next year.
And then on top of that, like, Kyle Murray's not that good either. Like, I hate to tell everybody this, but I don't think he's that great of a quarterback.
His contract extension's already on the books. They're something like that. I think they've got to do something different, though.
Lovie Smith down in Houston. He's had the boys playing football last 2 weeks. I think there's a chance he maybe survives.
The question, yeah, I mean, that's the question. Most first-year coaches get more than 1 year. No one thought the Texans were going to be good, or that they were going to be competing, so it shouldn't be a surprise they're bad. You're right. In December, they took Kansas City to overtime. They hung with Dallas. They beat Tennessee. Those are three pretty marquee things down the stretch. The question becomes this Texans organization, because you would have said the same thing about David Culley last year, who I actually thought the Texans played better for David Culley than we've seen them play this year. And yet Nick Caserio just decided to cut him loose. Now that they have their number 1 overall pick, do they want to pick somebody else who can actually build into a competitor?
Well, they can lose their number 1 pick, though, can't they?
Why would you? They need a franchise quarterback.
No, I'm saying they could lose the number 1 pick.
Oh, could lose
it?
If they win, yeah. But I can't remember who they're playing. They're playing the Colts.
Which
you never know. But if Chicago Chicago takes the number 1 pick, Chicago's not taking a quarterback.
No. Which I think personally, I mean, we'll get deeper into it. They should take C.J. Stroud over Bryce Young, but that's beside the point. You're a Young over Stroud guy?
I don't see why Chicago would take a quarterback.
No, I was talking about Houston.
Oh, yeah, Houston should. But that's what I said. Even if they lost the number 1 pick to the Bears, I thought you were saying the Bears should take quarterback.
No, they don't have a quarterback either, but that's beside the point. They have a running back. Speaking of the Colts, Jeff Saturday's good as gone.
It comes up because they went and got him outside the organization, but 1-6, blew a 33-point lead, and then had an embarrassing loss. They've quit on him.
Yeah, it was a good idea. If it
was
worked,
it a good idea?
Well, I mean, I'm sure he didn't. Jim Irsay didn't have to pay him as much as somebody else. He just kind of threw him in there. If it works, he looks like a genius. If it doesn't, he's just a center. He shouldn't have been coaching, and he just move on with your life. Last one we're going to talk about is Steve Wilks. I don't think he gets the job, and I think it's just based on the Carolina owner trying to make a splash. He's already talked to Harbaugh. I wouldn't be surprised if Harbaugh does go to Carolina. I know there's a lot of things that have to fall in place, but I think that owner there wants to make a splash, and that to me is not Steve Wilks, no matter how good he's kind of had this team playing down the stretch.
Yeah, it's hard for interim coaches. Like last year, I thought Rich Bisaccia should have been the coach of the Raiders. He stabilized a reeling franchise, got them into the playoffs. He should have gotten a shot, and he didn't. If Steve Wilks would have gotten that win on Sunday and the Panthers get in, I think he would have gotten it. I think he would have gotten it. I think he deserves a shot. I like what he's done because the Panthers look lost for 2.5 years under Matt Rule, and they've actually been playing pretty well, and he's gotten a lot out of Sam Darnold. But it's very hard for an interim coach, and you're right, David Tepper seems like he's really bent on making some kind of giant splash again.
He's just like He's just lost like Oakland. I'll call him Oakland for the rest of my life. But I think they're just like Vegas. I feel like they should stick around with Wilkes, give him another season under the belt, see what he does. And you can cut because they're not going to – I'm sorry, but this team doesn't contend. You know what I mean? Maybe they do contend. Maybe they have the opportunity to. Maybe Wilkes gets them playing a little bit next year. You know, you never know. And if the experiment doesn't work, you're not a Super Bowl team next year anyway. You could be a division because who knows what's going to happen in this division next year. It's going to be still in shambles with everything that's going on within the division. You don't know what's going on with Brady. They've played a little bit better, obviously, down the stretch, but I don't know. I'll tell you what, I'm telling you, Dallas doesn't want to play Tampa Bay. I know that's controversial. They're playing good football, decent football on the offensive side of the football. I think if Dallas can manage to well, I don't know if I would want to play Green Bay either. I don't know what I would want right there if I'm Dallas. I'll tell you what. I will say this. I am all in on the Lions making the playoffs this weekend. I think the Rams could beat Seattle. I think that's a winnable game for the Rams. I really do.
Oh, it's a winnable game for the Rams, but
I think it's a winnable game for the Rams, and I think the Lions could beat the Packers. Will it happen? I don't know, but I'm putting money on it. So
I picked the Lions to beat the Packers. I'm just worried about the Seattle part of the equation.
I think the Rams could win that football game. I really do. I think Seattle had been playing pretty rough, and they had the big bounce back win against the Jets, who are terrible, and Mike White's terrible. I've been saying he's terrible. He sucks. Also, I meant to say on the show last week because for some reason I didn't go over my bets last week. I don't know what happened. We just rambling. So we'll go ahead and dive right into those real quick. Last week I went 2-2 on my picks. One of the picks that did win was the Seahawks +3. I talked about it on the podcast with Clarkson that Mike White was 0-3 on the road going into that game. He's now 0-4, obviously. The Seahawks won that one. Raiders over 1.5 touchdowns. I spoke about that. I had some sort of faith in the Raiders to be in that football game. I didn't know what it was. That bet hit, obviously. Waller over 14.5 yards and Kittle over 29.5 yards. Look, Waller hit the over 14.5 on the first drive. Kittle had 23 yards in the first quarter and a half. Did not see another catch all fucking game. Please tell me how in 2.5 quarters of football, he had 5 more targets but couldn't catch one ball for 7 yards for this bet to cash. Other one was Kelsey over 59.5 yards. Again, another one that I just could not for the life of me understand. You have to come back to win that game or to win the game or be in the game against a Broncos team. For some reason, they haven't played good football, but they played the Chiefs pretty well for 2 games. You have Mahomes over 328 passing yards, but Kelsey ends up with, I got it right here in front of me. Kelsey ends up with 43 yards. Obviously, 17 yards shy of what he got and what I needed for my bet. And you're talking about a guy that had 113, 105, 71 over the last 3 games, had 10 targets in the game, 7 catches. He just didn't break any of those free. So I went 2-2 the week. Over on the season, 57, 36, and 1. Not too bad. I've only got 2 plays for you right now. We'll have more. Clarkson and I will be live probably Saturday morning talking week 18 and our prop bets and our best bets. I got a parlay for you guys. Joshua Dobbs, 1 touchdown pass. Evan Ingram over 29.5 yards. Even with what I said earlier about Dobbs, he looked decent enough. I still think that he could throw a single touchdown pass. You know what I mean? Like, it's not rocket science to go out there and throw at least 1 touchdown pass. I think the Jaguars, while their defense has been playing decent over the last 2 weeks, only giving up 6 points. They're still the same defense that gave up quite a few points. They even gave up 22 points in the last game against this team. And then, of course, Evan Ingram, who has been on absolute tear, ripped this team apart for 11 catches, 162 yards, and 2 touchdowns just 4 weeks ago. He's hit this number in 3 straight weeks. I don't count last week. They pulled the starters in the first half in that game against Houston once they went ahead, which I don't blame them at all for. He's hit this number again in 5 straight weeks. I like for him to be a key pivotal reason of why they try to win this division this weekend. And then I mentioned it a few minutes earlier. I like the Rams this week. I'm only going to go a little bit on them. I'm going to go +7. The spread is 6.5, which I think is way too high for a team that's not playing great in Seattle. They had a good bounce back week, but like I said, the Jets have kind of faltered down the stretch. But I like the Rams possibly to win this football game. I actually have a fun little bet. I'm not recommending it, but if you want to tail me to win some money this weekend, let's do it. I have a bet right now where it's hang on 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm going to give you the odds and everything this week. It is the Lions to win. Here we go. I've got the Lions to win and the Rams to win, which equates to +740. So +740, you can get both of them to win. That's how the Lions get in the playoffs. I threw $3 on it to win 22. If you want to ride with me into the sunset. Let's keep the hope and the dream alive that we could see the Lions in the playoffs. Just because, I don't want Aaron Rodgers there. Aaron Rodgers, can pound sand. But that said, I'm excited. Fox, what do you think of my 2 bets so far? What's my 2?
I mean, I hope the Rams can win. Josh Dobbs didn't look too bad last week. I think the Titans will make it competitive with the Jaguars. I still think the Jaguars win that game. I hope the Rams can win. I would love to see Detroit in the playoffs. I've wanted Detroit in the playoffs. I'm really sad that they are not just in a scenario where they could win and be in.
Yeah, I am as well. I'm not very pleased at all. I just saw a tweet that somebody tweeted out. Doctors say Damar Hamlin asked via writing who won the game on Monday night. The doctor's response was, "You won life." Yeah, I am sad too for the Lions because it's sad that if they go out there, but even if the Seahawks win, I still think the Lions go out there and try to spoil Aaron Rodgers.
The Lions are going to try to win no matter what.
For sure.
I'm just disappointed that
they should be in a win-and-in scenario. And
it should be Hard Knocks is the ultimate tiebreaker. And if you're in a tiebreaker scenario and there was no head-to-head, but you were on Hard Knocks, you automatically get past it.
I second that. That said, if you just listened to the sports version of this podcast, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you each and every week throughout this entire season. Of course, we will be continuing throughout the offseason, or throughout the playoffs to break down some of what's going on in the playoffs, giving predictions, thoughts, and all that good stuff. Maybe as we dive into the playoffs, we'll dive in a little bit into free agency and look ahead at some of those guys that are open in the open market. Maybe we'll break it down each week, quarterback, running back, receiver, stuff like that. But I'm excited for week 18 of the NFL. I'm excited to see what these playoffs have in store for us, what unfolds, what kind of chaos we can have. Like I said, if you're just listening to the sports portion, make sure to head over to the Music City Drive-In to check all the latest articles and reviews. Check out Matthew Fox on Twitter at Nighthawk7734 for myself at Ricky Valero _. And with that said, we're going to transition right over to our movie corner. Oh, sorry. This week is the big release. I was supposed to see this movie last night. I just didn't get a chance to go. Just some personal family stuff going on. That said, Megan is out in theaters this week. I plan on going to see it probably Friday or Saturday. I haven't really dictated which one I'm doing yet, but quite excited for it. It could be either very good or very bad, one or the other. It is a January release. It's a horror movie, and I'm scared, but it does look at least intriguing enough to make me want to get out of my seat and go to the movie theaters for the first time since Christmas. So I am excited about that. Also releasing finally Wise Woman Talking, a film that both of us love tremendously. And then The Pale Blue Eyes, which is releasing on Netflix. I haven't watched it yet because I just haven't had the time to. Nothing that looks like it's groundbreaking. It might be okay. I don't know. What about you, Fox? Have you seen it?
I have not seen The Pale Blue Eyes.
Could have like 40 times, but I just haven't.
I also have not seen Megan. I'm going to watch it at some point this weekend. I think the fear that you're feeling is justified but it's not because we think the movie's going to be scary. It's just that we're scared of the movie. I'm not that pumped about it, to be honest. Maybe that will work out in its favor. Sometimes when you have like the low expectations, but there was nothing about the trailer that I saw it and thought, oh, I can't wait for this to come out. I saw the trailer and I thought, my God, I'm going to have to watch that at some point.
I'm just excited to check it out because I think it's the first movie of 2023. Yeah. And that's the only reason why I'm excited to check it out. But it does look at least slightly interesting. One thing
I am interested in The Pale Blue Eyes because I like Scott Cooper. I like Christian Bale. I like the idea. People that have seen it didn't like it. But you know what? People are wrong all the time.
All the damn time. I've had it in my Netflix Q account for like 2 months now, or like a month and a half, and I just keep forgetting to watch it. That said, also just something that you and I watched together. You said you finished it. We watched Kaleidoscope, which is available on Netflix, one of the first series, if not the first series of the new year. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it wasn't great, but it definitely had intrigue. There's a certain way I think both Fox and I agree that it should be watched. Not the way that they're pushing it from Netflix. No offense to Netflix, but I like it. Esposito, is that his name? Esposito?
Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, I think he's incredible. I thought he was great in it. I really enjoyed him. Jay Courtney can never do any wrong. He's hilarious. He just plays the perfect prick, I guess you could call. Like,
I don't like his character.
I did. I just thought that he was. I mean, I just thought he was an asshole, and I didn't mind him. And then I loved. What's her name?
I think so. I'm gonna say part of my. I did finish it. It's a novel concept. A couple of the episodes where you flash way back in time would have worked buried in the middle, but Netflix is insistent that the episodes can all be watched in any order except for White. White has to come last.
Not true. Sorry.
Well, no, that's their position.
I know,
that's Netflix's position.
Yeah.
I honestly don't understand that call. There are, I guess there's a piece at the end of the episode of White that foreshadows, but you've already seen it.
Yeah.
By then, I will also say the true episode that is the last chronologically is Pink, and I did not care for it. And so by the time that you then hit the last episode, you already know the answers to all the questions that are being posed, and all the answers to all those questions were a disappointment to me. So it made me sort of dislike it.
Yeah, so the thing about it is there were certain aspects of the series that I don't feel like they closed out the right way. And I feel like
it's obviously, I'm going to say it right now, it's the most nihilistic series of the new year.
And
oh wait, I guess that's not true because Nicholas Winding Refn has released a series already.
Did you watch? So you watched Pink? You watched White last then?
I watched it the exact order they gave me. I just figured I would try it.
I had 2 episodes left, which is White and Pink, and I made the ultimate decision to flip-flopping it after realizing it's 6 months after. Because to me, if I know what's going on 6 months after, I could care less about what happens in the heist.
So I watched it in the order they gave it, saying that this is how you should watch it. And that's exactly what happens. You see the 6 months after, and I found that episode was also deeply unsatisfying. But then it's almost like, hey, when you're watching a heist show, I get that the heist portion is usually the most exciting. And I was actually looking forward to the heist. But it just felt ultimately pointless.
Yeah, the episode felt pointless after you watched it.
Because you'd watched 2 episodes chronologically that had come after this.
Yeah.
So any questions that were raised had already been decided.
The only thing I didn't mind watching the morning after before the heist because that's how I ended up doing it, just because that's how it was in. I didn't mind it as much because I didn't feel like they revealed as much, but I would have still preferred to watch the heist first, then the morning after, then 6 months after. But yeah, it's still weird. I don't know. It's definitely one thing I did want to bring up to you, and I wasn't sure that you had. I'm sure you have because you're a movie guy like I did, but sorry. But I was taking a look at the theatrical release year of like all the movies coming out. We are in for a banger of a year starting in February. Like, look, I know I'm the only person in the world probably excited for 80 for Brady because I think it looks hilarious. You have Knock at the Cabin, which could be bad or good. It's M. Night Shyamalan. But that said, the 17th you have Ant-Man. 24th you have Cocaine Bear, which whatever. It does look stupid, but it looks like it could be good. But as soon as we hit March, Creed 3, Scream 6, Shazam, John Wick, Dungeons and Dragons, which I could whatever with. And then, of course, you got Mario. Then you've got, I'm trying to think of the good stuff here. Guardians of the Galaxy, which I know you're uber excited about. Fast 10, Little Mermaid. Like, it just is like banger week after week after week. It seems like we're going to be seated at the theaters. Typically, I think this time of the year, it's like before March, before you're really seated at the theaters. Like, you and I were always seated at the theaters. But I think typically this time of year, it's normally you're waiting until like March to really get hyped. And I really feel like it ramps up in February, which is exciting in a way, but also I would like to kind of relax a little bit. So
Usually President's Day weekend is a big, that's where the first Black Panther movie dropped. They usually have.
yeah, it's ramping up pretty hard, but like week after week after week after week after week, and then like
I don't know
June,
why you're
July.
forgetting. Last year we got the award-winning film Uncharted in mid-February.
I liked Uncharted.
How'd you forget? So did I own it, but
I actually really like it. And then of course when you move into like June, you've got Into the Spider-Verse's sequel, which I could care less about. Transformers. Then Flash finally comes out, possibly, maybe, who knows. Indiana Jones, which I could care less about. Mission Impossible, Oppenheimer, Barbie, The Marvels, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Meg 2, which I'm really excited about The Meg 2. I don't care what anybody says. I like the first one. I like
the first one a lot. I don't know if it needs a sequel. If they don't finally release the Flash movie, I think that guy running WB has to come out and flash everyone, just so that
he's not running WB anymore. It's James Gunn and that other guy. They fired the other guy.
No, David Zaslav
that
runs
guy.
Warner Brothers.
I was thinking of DC, but I've got my thoughts on that. I think that I'm excited. I hope I want them to recast everything. They should have dropped Flash like this week in theaters, and then Aquaman the week after, and just completely got rid of all of them. Because first off, the first Aquaman sucked. It was terrible, and I hated it. And I could care less about the Flash.
It's the worst DCEU film, bar none.
And I was really excited, but I'm really excited about Shazam still, because I really love the first movie. I really hope
Shazam sort of exists outside of everything else, though.
And I'm hoping it stays that way. But I don't know. That said, I'm excited. We got a lot of stuff coming out, pumping out a lot of content. I don't know. Matthew Fox and I are cooking up something this Saturday. We're going to be talking about the North American Film Critic Association Awards. Nominations are being decided. I have started the tally. I'm waiting for one more ballot. We're going to get that in, and I will be ready to announce them Saturday at noon Eastern. It's going to be
time. Publicly shame the person that's last.
Is
it you? Is it you?
Definitely not me. That said, I'm very excited about that. And then, of course, we'll have the live show Monday night. Yeah. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Knowing the NFL, they'll probably play that Bills-Bengals game again on Monday night, too.
Probably. Just right in the middle of our show.